Chairman Durbin.
Thanks a lot, Chairman Coons, and it's a pleasure to be with you. First, two disclaimers. I'm a liberal arts lawyer, not nearly as tech savvy as I should be for this hearing. Point number two, my experience in government, which has been over several decades, suggests that we are slow to recognize issues that are fast breaking and have a very spotty record when it comes to responding to them in a thoughtful way. I hope this is an exception. If I could address Tristan Harris first, aloha, and then may I ask you this question. I've been reading and trying to understand why the European Union is taking such a apparently bold and innovative approach to this subject, and we are so slow to respond. Any thoughts?
In this country, obviously, we value free speech above other values, and so that makes it, I think, harder to regulate an environment where the composition of what constitutes speech in our society is a Frankenstein monster that spins out blocks of attention virally to different people on a personalized basis and outrages them. I don't think that we have had a framework. To your earlier point, one of the quotes we reference often is from E.O. Wilson, that the fundamental problem of humanity is we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and then accelerating godlike technology. It's not meant as an insult to any government body. It's just to say the challenge that you pose, which is how do we deal with the first derivative of these issues? We are still talking about mostly conversations that we've had, 4 years ago about spread of misinformation, things like that. The rate and acceleration of new kinds of threats, new kinds of issues, the growth rate of that is growing far faster than the growth rate of our capacity to mitigate or respond to those threats. I was speaking with someone in the fact-checking network who said, there's now 200 billion messages a day going through WhatsApp, 15 billion going through Facebook. They get about 100 fact checks per day. If you think about a bank being over-leveraged and how much risk are they, how far over their skis are they? We've got about 200 billion to 100 in terms of scale of information that's running through a system without moderation, with, as Senator Sass said, the decentralized incentive for yellow journalism. If it bleeds, it leads. It wants to make each of us into yellow journalists because we each get more rewarded the more extreme things that we say in an inadvertent way. So in this subtle way, in this very slow climate change and culture kind of way, just by 2%, increasing the kind of outrageousness of what you're saying, the sensationalism of what you're saying, you get a few more likes, you get a few more hits, and so you keep doing it, and suddenly that heats up the global conversation and has us not even recognize our fellow Americans as fellow Americans.
So I want to take you down a different path, if I can, for a moment, as I try to read and absorb the European Union's risk-based approach to this AI issue. They say two things they find unacceptable, use examples. Manipulating human behavior. I think that's at the heart of it, as I understand the explanation. I've heard people from Facebook talk about making your Facebook experience more meaningful, and folks from YouTube and Twitter talking about healthy dialogue. But the bottom line is, it appears that there, like it or not, there is a factor here where our human behavior is being affected by what we are seeing, what we are reading, what we are experiencing. And that seems to violate the basic premise of the EU regulation. And the second one, in the extreme, is this social credit scoring, which they use as an example, which apparently is rampant in places like China, and takes the manipulation and analysis and algorithms to the point where they disqualify people from being able to get on a fast train in China because their social credit score doesn't merit it. Give me your thoughts on those two elements.
Well, on the manipulation front, that would disqualify just about all of the three companies that are sitting in front of you, including TikTok, by the way, which is not getting nearly as much attention and is actually dominating children's minds on a daily basis. I think if you've seen the film The Social Dilemma, we speak about my background in a class called the Stanford Persuasive Technology class and lab, and that these technologies are designed to be persuasive. So when you hear Twitter talk about the healthy conversation, there's still a persuasive technology that manipulates human behavior. They're trying to do it in as healthy a way as they can. When you hear Facebook talk about meaningful social interactions, they're still creating this sort of digital addiction, dopamine loop, getting you to invite your friends, create social obligations, dripping out notifications in one at a time instead of in batches. But they're doing it in, quote unquote, the most meaningful way that they can. they're trying to do the best they can, but to Senator Sass's point earlier, it's almost like listening to a hostage in a hostage video. Nothing they're saying kind of makes much sense until you realize there's a gun off stage holding, that's their business model held to their head, and it's causing them to say the things that they're saying. Again, these are really good people. We can't talk about the actual underlying issue because the business model is based on this manipulation. Sorry, I think I ran out of time for your second part.
In my last 5 seconds, I'm plugging for the Clean Slate for Kids Online Act. It's a small but very important part of this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.